Valuable stakeholders of the Ethics and Reputation Society, distinguished participants. I am Selin Yeğin, the master of this online ceremony. On behalf of the Ethics and Reputation Society, we would like to thank you very much for joining us at the TEID Member Meeting. Well, as you all know, the Ethics and Reputation Society, which was established in 2010, continues to work with nearly 170 corporate members, each of whom is a great asset in their own industry. Our society, which continues its activities with the aim of disseminating the ethical culture in the business community, aims to renew the signatures of the TEID Integrity Pledge, which was first signed by 85 corporate members of our society in 2012, and renew our TEID 2022 family photo online. First, we will start our member meeting with the opening speech of Aslı Ertekin, Chairwoman of the Ethics and Reputation Society. Afterwards, we will continue with the speeches of our distinguished international speakers, giving examples of collective action from the world. Afterwards, we will be separated into the parallel roundtable meetings on Zoom in the moderated speeches, and we will be briefly debriefing you regarding our latest activities, and we will have time to exchange information and know-how with one another. And then we will come back to the main room to renew the Integrity Pledge signatures. And then we will shoot the TEID family photo, and this time we are going to end our meeting with the closing speech of our distinguished chairwoman. So our kind request from you is that our technical team will be able to put you into your parallel sessions with the numbers which are going to be put in front of your name. So please do not rename yourself or do not delete those, and please do not unmute yourself if you're not taking the floor or if you're not speaking. Well, distinguished meetings from the chat part, we will be able to see and follow what you have written, and likewise. Now I leave the floor to Ms. Aslı Ertekin, Chairwoman of the Board of Ethics and Reputation Society, to make their opening speech. Aslı Hanım, the floor is yours. Selim Bey, thank you so much. First of all, let's test whether you can hear me. Yeah, we hear you loud and clear. Thank you so much. Distinguished members of the Ethics and Reputation Society, valuable participants. In order to renew our pledge, we have come together to pose the biggest and largest collective action example, and because of the pandemic we are doing this online. And on behalf of the board of the executive board of the TEID, I would like to thank you very much for joining us here today. We are honored and well pleased by your presence. From the very first day of the humanity, it has been a collective action, and the interaction of the societies and the individuals have been actually the pushing factor in almost all of the economic, social and cultural discoveries, innovations. When we look at the acquisitions of the humanity, it has not been thanks to one single individual person and or endeavor, but it has been the one great person, but of a collective action of so many different societies and millions of people all throughout the years. And particularly in today's time, the importance and significance of collective action has been understood even better. Different disciplines are playing a pivotal role in the development as well as the competition, and the collective consciousness and structures are playing a significant role. It's not only the individuals, but also the corporations and entities with a collective and joint consciousness need to act together, which has become an even better reality. In this respect, by the World Bank, a continuous cooperation among the stakeholders is the definition of the collective action, and it is offering a great benefit to the resolution of the problems, which is becoming even more apparent in this respect. Among the cooperation, based on the different cooperation among the different stakeholders, and a sustainable solidarity could be defined as a collective action, and it is even bigger than the sum of the individual endeavors or initiatives. initiatives, coming up with a collaborative platform and coming up with an action plan. This is the target today. And particularly in terms of the business ethics, a collective action could gather different representatives of the business community and a fair and equal, transparent, accountable and reliable business and market environment, hence a healthy competition could be offered. In this direction today, as the Turkish Ethics and Reputation Society, we started collective action journey on the 28th of February in 2012, and we are pleased and honored to be seeing great results of this initiative. First of all, we had 85 signatories of the Turkish the TEID, the Integrity Pact, and it is still playing a major role in the Turkish business community, as well as this in the international platform. This is, again, among the top successful examples of a collective action. And with the addition of the new members, in 2016, on the 13th of January, we were joined and our number became 120 signatories. And today, now, the corporate number of the corporate members has become 170. And in order to renew their pledge and their commitment, we have brought together our distinguished members, and we are very pleased and honored to be doing so. As you know, TEID, the business of doing business in an ethical and integral fashion, starting from the major enterprises, coming down from top to bottom, and dissemination of this ethical culture among all the stakeholders, increasing and making participation to this profession, and simply spreading this culture, disseminating this culture. The socio-economic operations, thanks to the collective actions, could be improved, could be more ethical, and be offering better integrity in this respect. This is what we believe. In this respect, collective actions are actually going to be boosting the power of the different initiatives of different companies. And the effective management of the risks, accountability, and transparency, raising awareness, and simply disseminating business ethics and making this an integral part of the DNAs of the culture is what we try to do as state. So in this member gathering with all of you regarding the collective actions, we will be hearing great international speakers of pivotal importance, and then in our roundtable meetings with all of our members, under the moderation of our board members, we will having chats, we will be renewing our signatures in terms of the Integrity Pact, and we plan to renew our family picture online. And we would like to once again take this opportunity to thank you very much for joining us on this special day on behalf of whole Turkish Ethics and Reputation Society and all of the auditing and the board, the executive boards. We promise to work even more for you, and thank you so much. Well, distinguished President, Chairwoman Aslı Ertekin, we would like to thank you very much for this great opening address. And now we're going to be continuing our meeting, our webinar, with great collective action examples from today's business community who are going to be taking their places respectively. First of all, we are going to get started with Germany, and then we're going to be hearing great experiences from different countries. I would like to leave the floor to distinguished Shawn Teixeira, Collective Action Director of Siemens AG. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for those words of introduction. Thank you, Aslı, for those very, very encouraging opening words as well. And wow, what an impressive kaleidoscope of accomplishments that we've seen in the backdrop to this video. In fact, it's almost what I want to say in pictures, and very, very, very impressive. Thank you so much. For those who don't know me, yes, my name is Shawn Teixeira, and I have spent well over 30 years now in various financial leadership roles in Siemens, mainly in South Africa. I was head of internal audit, and then of course headed later the compliance function for Africa, and joined in 2015 the team in Munich, first heading up the investigations department, and then subsequently joining Sabina Sendera in her collective action and external affairs department. Since then and up until today, I am responsible for the management and the oversight of the Siemens Integrity Initiative. At this point, I would just like to pause and send very sincere greetings and best wishes from Sabina. You know, Sabina in many ways is the architect of this Siemens Integrity Initiative, and I know that she would have very much liked to join you today and to address you, but was kept from doing so due to very last minute and unforeseen circumstances. But the good news there is there will be a next time. And I just want to again say it's a very a big privilege for me to join this very special, important milestone moment, as it were, for TEID and for the Turkish Integrity Center of Excellence. It's significant because since TEID's founding, I think going back to 2010, if I'm not mistaken, TEID has really come of age and has matured into a reputable go-to center of reference on principles of business ethics and responsible business, and their support and guiding and training and providing of resource to an impressive membership, as Aslı mentioned, that has now grown to 117 corporate members. And that's a significant representation of Turkish GDP. And the reach is phenomenal. If I would guess close, you know, a reach on close to 500,000 employees. So it's really an honor for me to address the distinguished participants today, who represent many of these organizations gathered for this momentous occasion to virtually sign and reaffirm the renewed and revised declaration of support, of integrity in support of business transparency, and all that in the interests of transparent socio-economic development. And it's important because, you know, our journey with TEID goes back some time now. We've come a long way. I think at least over 10 years, but certainly as far as the Integrity Initiative is concerned, certainly 7 years ago in 2014, when TEID was successful in their application for funding under the second funding round of the Siemens Integrity Initiative, and where the vision at that time was to create cultural change in the Turkish private sector and to train compliance officers to effectively manage compliance and deal with integrity risks in their respective companies, and to build a sustainable capacity all through this institution, which I think was tailor-made for that purpose, the Turkish Integrity Center of Excellence, to really engage the private sector, bring them together for, as I said, a level playing field. And of course, the project implementation was impressive. And this set a solid foundation for the current third funding round project, which aims to further strengthen collective action and to build further alliances and to further enhance the skill sets and competence, but and here's the noble purpose, for longer term and more sustainable outcomes. And much has been achieved in this collective journey. But let me get to that a little later. And as I said, your video presentation in such a nice way captures just such an impressive legacy in that journey. But a little about Siemens. You know, at Siemens, we have around 300 employees all around the world, and we work with stakeholders to positively transform technology in the area of industry, infrastructure, transport, and of course, healthcare. And we committed in our approach to responsible business conduct. So it's really fitting at this moment, if I may, and please allow me to just draw on the sentiments of our Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Roland Busch, and the Managing Board Member, Judith Wieser, taken from our forward to the Siemens the Siemens Sustainability Report for 2021, where they say, and I quote, "For us, responsibility includes conscientiousness, integrity, and adherence to our values. We support that with a strong across-the-board compliance system and clear guidance for how we do business. In society as well, we're working for greater integrity and a fair market environment. With the Siemens Integrity Initiative, we're supporting organizations around the world to combat corruption," end quote. This shows, you know, in many ways a clear and recognized commitment to sustainable and responsible business practice. And with the Siemens Integrity Initiative, as many of you know, we have since committed around $120 million in 85 projects in more than 50 countries to promote fair market conditions and to join hands in the fight against corruption through collective action and education. And we do this because collective action is about just that. It's about building alliances and promoting fair competition with multiple organizations and stakeholders throughout the world, because there is a clear business case for companies to do so. To promote clean markets means successful business, and at the same time, it mitigates risk. So the Siemens Integrity Initiative has come a long way over the last decade and has built, as I said before, a kaleidoscope of experiences and learnings from our impressive network of people and institutions who we refer to as our integrity partners. And you will hear, as you heard earlier, from some of these institutions, from Gemma, the Basel Institute of Governance in Switzerland, from Deon, the Ethics Institute in South Africa, and of course from Soji, from the CBI in Nigeria. And over the last decade, we've also seen that this collective action method, so to speak, has met with international recognition amongst international and regional organizations, as well as governments and, of course, private sector representatives. And as I mentioned earlier, we do this for the benefit of society and for the well-being of the future, and because integrity makes business sense. So building on this notion of making business sense, I would like to also briefly touch on the backsleeve summary of OECD's publication, Global Lessons on Collective Action Against Corruption, the Case in Morocco. And this is a product as well that comes out of our second funding round project in Morocco that was run by the OECD. And again, I quote, "Fighting corruption is increasingly becoming a business decision, leading companies to implement actions to strengthen business integrity. And they go on to say, this in turn has led to the emergence of collective anti-corruption action involving several companies in the same sector or field of activity banding together to promote greater business integrity on a voluntary basis. And this type of collective action, together with and alongside with other legal, institutional, and administrative reforms, can make a significant contribution to creating a healthier business climate for greater economic development. So the resonance, this resonance around the notion of business or business decision captures, in my mind, perhaps two complementary dimensions. It makes sense for business to pursue integrity, and the pursuit of integrity makes business sense. Makes sense for business to pursue integrity, and the pursuit of integrity makes business sense. So looking through the prism of our Siemens Integrity Initiative portfolio, and we have seen this collective action method take traction in many parts of the world, like Nigeria, South Africa, Brazil, Colombia, India, Pakistan, Kenya, and the list goes on, reaching into well over 50 countries. And here I would encourage all of the dear participants and distinguished participants to visit our collective action website, to take a look at those annual reports that have been prepared over the last 10 years and that cover many of those significant accomplishments. And of course, for me personally, it has been such a privilege to engage with and meet with the dedicated and committed individuals, because in the end, it is really all about people, about their passion, about their commitment, about their conviction that make up this impressive, sustainable collective action network of people and institutions, and to be part of the significant contributions that have been made. And of course, TEID stands out as an amazing example and a significant contributor in this regard. And I really want to express a word of thanks and appreciation here, and through the dedicated work of the TEID team, of Baha, of Neslihan, I think even of Typhoon Zaman, and it goes back to those beginning days, those conceptual days, who I also had the privilege of touching sides with in Switzerland some years back. But just the heavy and the committed engagement and the support from the executive, Aslı, in the implementation work. And we really are appreciative of the excellent contributions, accomplishments. And as I said at the outset, this is really positioned TEID as a reputable go-to center of competence and expertise. And I also think of the in-country contribution and support from our colleagues in Siemens, of the project relationship managers, Mutlu Sahin in the beginning, Ezra Ozak, and of course, more recently, Banu, who I believe is also participating in this discussion. But in the interest of time now, and in parallel to that wonderful opening video, I cannot cover a fully comprehensive list of meaningful accomplishments that this team have delivered. But let me touch on some. I think I have to. So it's really the words behind the pictures that you have seen in the video. So let me touch on the examples, just this impressive growing number of corporate members. I saw the slide that started off with somewhere around 120, and now we're at 170. And this meaningful declaration of integrity, which brings together corporate members under one unified set of common principles. And what is so important to note here is that it's not static. It's reviewed from time to time and takes cognizance of emerging topics in the public discourse, such as ESG, human rights, data privacy, which is already fleshing out this revised and renewed declaration. Just the extensive and topically diverse webinars and seminars and events like this to facilitate learning and networking and opportunities to incubate collective action initiatives, to conceive them and to grow them, and that array of focused thematic working groups to innovate and to standardize and to draw on international best practices and benchmarks, and the rich and diverse subject matter resource portfolio. And we saw some of those: the in-guide, the in-magazine, the in-blog, the in-action, the in-platform, the in-books, and the list just goes on. And of course, you know, we also need to touch on the flexibility and the adaptivity, especially the responsiveness of the team in implementing a third funding round project under the constraints of a global COVID pandemic. And the accomplishment here is without in any way materially diluting the reach and the quality of the results. But then, you know, true to the notion of building up capacity and building up networks, the establishment of several partnerships with local and sectoral and regional and professional organizations, and that very tangible recommendation and policy contribution to the relevant authority for the recognition of compliance as a profession. And of course, the voice has become louder because there's also been a substantive contribution on the international stage in the global discourse on collective action and anti-corruption through, for example, and I name only one, the B20. But I think the most important thing is the shift over the years from getting things off the ground to investing into the future. And we see a lot of that now in this third funding round project, is that focus on sustainable future-oriented results, the focus on reaching young minds and professionals and really investing into the future and looking into the future. Of course, it would be the vision and the dream to see even more private sector engagement, even more private sector contribution to collective action initiatives. And by contribution, yes, I do mean both in kind and of course financial, because in the end, it takes unified and collective effort to enable meaningful and sustainable and lasting change for a transparent and fair and level playing field. And sometimes it doesn't take much. Sometimes it's just about a vision coupled with commitment and a contribution, and it starts small and it grows incrementally over time into something big and into something meaningful. And I would like to now, in closing, if I may, just share one practical anecdote. And I go back to my opening greetings from Sabina, and Sabina remembers fondly a dinner discussion in Istanbul somewhere around 2009. And apart from the incredible Turkish hospitality and amazing Turkish cuisine, Sabina recalls how a group of private sector representatives including Mr. Hussein Gelis, the CEO of Siemens Turkey, spoke about a vision to conceive and to create something lasting and sustainable for their grandchildren and for generations to come. A vision of a transparent and a level playing field and equal opportunity for all. And out of this vision, with very, very nominal seed funding, TEID was founded. I don't know if I get the year correct, but somewhere around 2010. And as I mentioned at the outset, what do we see today? TEID has since come of age and matured into a reputable go-to national center of reference on principles of business ethics, responsible business conduct, and with an audible voice in the global discourse on anti-corruption. So dear distinguished participants, be encouraged to be part of this collective action initiative and to think beyond, to innovate new initiatives in order to promote clean markets and enable sustainable and successful business. My thanks and appreciation to the organizing team, to the participants, and for this wonderful opportunity to address you today. And I do extend my very best wishes for a successful event, a successful pledge ceremony, and a remarkable investment into the future. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you for your speech, Mr. Teixeira. Hanımefendiler, beyefendiler, kıymetli izleyicilerimiz.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear visitors, Siemens 8G, Siemens Integrity Initiative. Within this scope, our association is Turkish Integrity Center of Excellence. In 2010 and in 2019, there were 2 projects, and in 2014, the first project was implemented and it lasted 3 years, and a compliance awareness was created, and ethical and compliance professional standards were prepared, and training was given in TEID Academy. And in 2019, the second project began, and all the companies operating in Turkey, in order to ensure that the same level was ensured in ethics and compliance, supply chain and business partners, ethical compliance and development is intended. And we are all going to renew our signatures under TEID's ethical declaration. And it's a collective action that is between the sectors. And our distinguished visitors, audience have been shared this important information. And now we are going to go to Basel. And compliance, corporate and governance, collective action chairperson, Ms. Gemma Aiolfi will continue with the floor. And now Ms. Aiolfi has the floor.
Thank you very much for the invitation to speak at this important milestone event for the Ethics and Reputation Society. May I first of all congratulate you all on the commitment and engagement you all bring to addressing integrity and corruption-related challenges. I've been asked to talk about examples of anti-corruption collective action initiatives from around the world. But before doing so, I just wanted to mention 4 developments that are incentivizing companies to engage in anti-corruption collective action. The first is the revised OECD recommendation published by the member countries of the Anti-Bribery Convention at the end of 2021. Among the new measures to reinforce efforts to prevent, detect, and investigate foreign bribery, collective action is included for the very first time. Member countries have to really engage. They must, and I quote, consider fostering, facilitating, engaging or participating in anti-bribery collective action initiatives with private and public sector representatives, as well as civil society organizations aiming to address foreign bribery and bribe solicitation, end of quote. This recommendation will be part of the country monitoring process that members of the OECD Convention undergo on an ongoing basis. So there are 44 member countries, including Turkey, of course, And quite simply, this means that governments will be asked to explain what have they done to foster, facilitate, engage or participate in collective action with civil society and companies. So now we have an international standard that is encouraging the public and private sectors to really get active and participate in collective action. Secondly, there's a rapidly growing interest in corporate non-financial reporting, where companies explain how they address environmental, social, and governance issues. The largest organization that publishes such information is the Global Reporting Initiative, or GRI. GRI's reporting standard on anti-corruption asks companies to describe whether they participate in collective action to combat corruption, including the company's strategy, a list of the initiatives in which they participate, and a description of the main commitments. So these are also pushing companies to think about how they can engage. What we're also seeing is an increasing recognition in the convergences or even overlaps between how companies are addressing human rights and corruption. These topics have much in common and are linked, but they're also have important differences. Using collective action to share knowledge and experiences is a practical approach that some companies are already using, given the new laws on human rights, as a way of keeping up with these new developments and sharing good practices. Fourthly, the last thing I just wanted to mention that's having a real impact on the dynamism of collective action is the network of corruption prevention agencies. This brings together government organizations from all over the world, many of which are responsible for drafting their national anti-corruption strategies. These strategies usually call on the private sector to prevent corruption. What we're finding is this network is now exchanging on their experiences and their different ideas on how to engage with the private sector, including through collective action. So these are some of the developments that are mainstreaming collective action to fight corruption. But let's look at a couple of the inspiring examples that we have been part of or witnessing over the last year or two. First of all, there's a question that's often asked by investors and boards. How can you measure whether an anti-corruption compliance program is really effective? What impact is it having? This was a question that was posed by one of the world's largest investors, the Norwegian Sovereign Wealth Fund manager, to a group of pharmaceutical companies. Together, the companies formed a collective action to agree on key performance indicators to identify what an effective anti-corruption program means in practice. The output was a set of indicators that are publicly available for companies to report on publicly. So far, 2 companies from the 8 that participated in the collective action have published such information about the quantitative and qualitative indicators of the effectiveness of their anti-corruption compliance programs. The second of these companies has also, Novartis, the pharmaceutical company, has also indicated where there are gaps and where they're still having to work to develop indicators. So this is probably the start of a discussion to identify more key performance indicators about what is effective. And this is an important discussion for many companies internally as well as externally. So this is an example of how collective action can break new ground. And it was the first, I think, to be inspired by an investor and also to address an area that is useful to companies. And I hope it may inspire other industry sectors to develop improvements to these basic indicators. As I say, this is a public document, and more inputs and more discussion around this would be very welcome. The second example I wanted to highlight is the joint project of 2 major global collective action initiatives. One is open ownership, and the other is the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative. Together, they're partnering to develop and deliver a new global program called Opening Extractives. It aims to stimulate a real transformation in beneficial ownership transparency in the extractives industry. This will involve governments, companies, and civil society publicly revealing the ultimate beneficial owners of their supply chain companies and partners of the companies that engage in mineral and mining industries. This collective action could be a game changer in a sector that has long been associated with corruption risks, including kleptocracy and state capture. And I think it's an exciting development because it brings together two really well-established collective action initiatives to tackle a really complex and political issue. So we'll be interested to see how it develops. Another initiative I'd like to mention is Compliance Without Borders. This is a mentoring program, and it's between state-owned enterprises and the private sector. And it arose out of discussions at the B20 and the OECD. It's been piloted in the last few months and could be a great way for state-owned enterprises to benefit from experienced compliance officers who are located in the private sector, sharing their experiences and expertise, and it's for free. So these are volunteers from the private sector who are often busy compliance officers, offering their time and knowledge to the state-owned enterprise. At the same time, the private sector compliance officers learn about the challenges of having to implement a compliance program in a state-owned organization, which often has very specific challenges. So Compliance Without Borders is an interesting and new collective action initiative. I wanted to mention another non-governmental organization called the Natural Resource Governance Institute, which really focuses on, as the name suggests, the oil and gas industry. Over the last 2 years, the Natural Resource Governance Institute conducted a detailed review and analysis of corruption cases involving state-owned enterprises and their oil and gas corporate partners in the private sector to identify the key recurrent corruption issues. They also reviewed existing best practices on corruption prevention. Then they brought together, in a series of consultations, 15 of the largest oil companies. They spoke to state-owned enterprises and civil society stakeholders. The aim of this action was to develop a new and tailored set of guidance that recommends measures that companies in the sector can adopt to reduce corruption risks in their work when partnering with state-owned enterprises. The guidance that was issued a couple of days ago also recommends measures that state-owned enterprises can take to strengthen their anti-corruption safeguards. They interviewed about 110 individuals, spoke to 50 companies, NGOs, financial institutions, universities, and developed a core group of 18 companies that could speak under Chatham House rules and under a closed-door workshop network. The guidance that they've developed breaks new ground for 3 reasons. First of all, because it really focuses on the business interactions between companies and state-owned enterprises. It has a mix of basic and ambitious measures. Some can be implemented already and others will take longer. And thirdly, and this is really interesting, I think, it prioritizes the public interest in the producing countries rather than the company's interests, which is usually the focus of compliance guidance. This means higher disclosure levels, even if the entities are not legally obliged to do such reporting. They hope that it will make a contribution to stopping serious forms of corruption like kleptocracy that has long been associated with this sector. This guidance could really provide inspiration to other countries because there are state-owned enterprises everywhere in the world, and many present similar risks as this industry sector, the minerals and mining sector. So the collective action methodology that the Natural Resource Governance Institute developed could be applied in other sectors, in other countries, and to other corruption-related challenges. So here are some of the examples from around the world that provide inspiration, I think, and examples that others can follow. And if you have any questions about collective action or want more details on any of these initiatives, please don't hesitate to get in touch with the Basel Institute or with colleagues at the Ethics and Reputation Society who will be glad to help. Thank you very much and good luck with your event today.
Efendim, bizler de Sayın Aiolfi'ye değerli paylaşımları için teşekkürlerimizi sunuyoruz. Sevgili izleyicilerimiz, TEID
Thank you so much.
Kolektif Eylem Merkezi'nin sektörel ve sektörler arası kolektif eylemleri sayesinde bir parçası. TEİD'in aynı zamanda
TEID is also a part of Basel Institute Governance Working Group as a member. I would like to also, with pleasure, tell you that. And now we have another distinguished speaker, distinguished Aiolfi. Gave great examples of the collective action, and we would like to thank her very much. And now we are going to go over to Babak Yektafar, Senior Program Officer, Middle East North Africa Center for International Private Enterprise.
And its distinguished members to celebrate the recommitment of top Turkish private sector enterprises to combat corruption and promote ethical business practices in a unified front. Your commitment, diligence, and leadership as members of TEID are critical factors in increasing the impact of your collective approach to eradicate supply-side bribery and corruption in one of the most promising and dynamic emerging markets. Of course, here at Center for International Private Enterprise, or TEID, we are incredibly proud of our long-standing partnership with TEID. Through our association with TEID, we have also come to appreciate the value that TEID members contribute to its cause. Collective action is often defined as a sustained multi-stakeholder collaboration to achieve common goals. Here at CIPE, we have also come to value a collective action approach as a vehicle to foster a dynamic partnership between the private sector and civil society. The inclusion of civil society is a critical element of the collective action approach to raising governance standards, including transparency and accountability. TEID has been a shining example of civil society leading a unified movement to combat corruption and improve the global competitiveness of Turkish businesses. TEID's Integrity Pact is the fuel that drives its collective action initiative to ensure an ethical and responsible business environment. This environment, driven by a commitment to integrity and ethical behavior, provides a level playing field for all Turkish enterprises to prosper while increasing public trust in business at a time when public trust in institutions is at a low point universally. Over the years, CIPE has often utilized collective action approach to help improve the business environment of developing countries and emerging markets. CIPE was a key collaborator in producing the World Bank's Fighting Corruption Through Collective Action, a guide for business that was produced in 2008 and that is still being widely used as a valuable resource. Over a decade ago, CIPE partnered with a leading corporate governance organization in Southeast Asia, the Thai Institute of Directors, and launched an anti-corruption collective action coalition. This initiative quickly attracted the support of some of the largest companies, banks, and multinational enterprises in Thailand. Today, the coalition has grown to include more than 1,000 companies that have pledged to adhere to a set of 71 internal rules and controls to reduce bribery. 400 of those companies undergo third-party audits to certify the presence of world-class anti-corruption programs. Of those 400 companies, over 75% have posted successive increase in revenue over the past several years. The success of this initiative shows that collective action compliance is not just a matter of good business practice, but also a profitable business practice. CIPE has supported similar collective action initiatives to combat corruption and other emerging ethical challenges across the globe, including initiatives in Kenya, Moldova, Hungary, and most recently, Armenia. In all of these CIPE-supported projects, the convergence of civil society and the private sector enterprises, coupled with buy-in from private sector stakeholders, has been and continues to be vital to their success. But perhaps the best example is right here in Turkey. TEID's leadership in developing a robust integrity pact to combat corruption through collective action, of which you are signatories, is a noteworthy case study among similar global initiatives. TEID's impressive work further enriches the case study in promoting the adoption of customized international standard compliance programs to increase the competitiveness of Turkish enterprise in the global market. As our world slowly regroups in the aftermath of the recent pandemic, Turkish businesses are in a prime position to be a significant and trusted contributor to the global economic recovery. CIPE and its partners, including TEID, remain at the forefront of an evolving environment with innovative initiatives to address new challenges to the business community. These challenges include the responsibility of businesses to protect our environment, contribute to improved governance and social development, and mitigate risks associated with technological advancement in business. I'm sure that TEID can continue to count on the support of its members in responding to these challenges as they evolve. Once again, I want to congratulate and thank you, the members of TEID, for your dedication to promoting a transparent, accountable, ethical, and responsible business community. Your support of TEID is vital in building trust in business and elevating the global status of the Turkish business community. Thank you.
Değerli izleyicilerimiz, CIPE kıdemli program yöneticisi Sayın Yektafar.
Distinguished guests, Babak Yektafar, Senior Program Officer of MENA of CIPE, thank you so much for their great contributions to our program. CIPE has been collaborating with TEID since 2016. It is another great organization. And in 2015, ÖSKEM, Private Sector Collective Action Center was established. And once again, we would like to thank them very much for their great support and contributions to our society. Well, Babak Yektafar, thank you so much because he gave us great information and reiterated great examples of an ethics and reputation in the business society. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now we're going to hear Deon Rossouw, CEO of the Ethics Institute of South Africa. So, distinguished Rossouw, the floor is yours.
Hello, it's a great privilege to join you, albeit virtually and in a recorded fashion. I'm speaking in my capacity as the CEO of the Ethics Institute. We are based in Pretoria, South Africa, but we work across the continent and also beyond the continent in various parts of the world. Our focus is on building ethical organizations, and we found over the years that collective action is a very important tool for us in our attempts to fight corruption, but more importantly also to build integrity in organizations. Now, collective action is a very old concept in one sense of the word, in the sense that whenever people come together to jointly tackle a problem, they are busy with some form of collective action. And it can be applied to fighting crime, to cleaning up a city, whatever common purpose there might be. But in recent years, collective action, of course, became very closely associated with anti-corruption. And as the Ethics Institute, we also were privileged to be involved in quite a number of countries on the African continent where we were instrumental in launching or facilitating collective action efforts. And we find it a most powerful mechanism to use, and of course also quite a safe mechanism, because we all know that when individuals speak out, it's easy to isolate them and to really do damage to them. But when people act as a collective or speak as a collective, there's safety in numbers, and there's also much more efficiency and much more effectiveness. So what I would like to do is to share with you just a few examples of the many collective action initiatives in which we were involved. The first type, which is quite common, I think, across the world, is about leveling the playing field. And I think about the initiative that we had a few years ago in Kenya, where there was corruption around import tariffs. Some people were paying the normal import tariffs, other people were bribing public officials, and in that way did not pay the full amount that they were supposed to pay. And obviously this led to a lot of frustration. Up to the point where some of the key players who don't want to be involved in corrupt practices came together, call on their peer organizations and say, can't we do something about that? And we were called in to facilitate that initial internal conversation where these players realized that if we want to engage with the public service and specifically around tariffs, we need to make sure that our own house is in order. So it typically started with them committing to certain ethical standards, and on the basis of that, then approaching the public sector authorities, and they were able to have a conversation, a good conversation, and to change things for the better. And this is a typical example of a very short-term, very focused collective action that really had the desired effect, and people moved on, and the level and the playing field was much more level after that. Okay, so that is the one type of collective action that I think always works well, because there's energy, there's focus, there's frustration, and people are keen to resolve it. And therefore they are willing to put time and resources into such initiatives. The other one that I've seen in a number of countries, 3 countries comes to mind, the Democratic Republic of Congo, Angola, Mauritius, and for different reasons there was a desire on the part of the business community to signal to multinational companies doing business in those countries, but also to international investors, that there are companies who are serious about doing business in an ethical manner. And in all 3 of these countries, it typically started off with the development of Integrity Pledge, where the players in the private sector came together and said, we are willing to put our name on paper and to sign to it that we commit ourselves to do business according to specific standards. In the case of Angola, for example, we got the involvement of all the major chambers of commerce in that country. They all supported the effort, and in the end, it ended up where companies came to the fore and they signed this pledge. In Mauritius, it went somewhat further in the sense that they take it beyond just the pledge, and they also developed a self-assessment tool where companies can assess their own integrity, their own anti-corruption systems and procedures, and even created the opportunity where certain companies, if they wish to do so, could be verified externally. In other words, an element of independence and independent verification came in, and all of this as a manner of signaling to multinational companies that we are a company of integrity, or we are a country. In this country, not everything is corrupt. There are players who are serious about ethics. And I think this was also worthwhile initiatives that we've seen there. A third and final one that I would like to share with you is where companies face a common challenge. And as we all know, these days there are lots of extraterritorial anti-corruption legislation. Probably the most famous examples are the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act of the USA and also the UK Bribery Act. And in terms of that, companies are held responsible not only for their own behavior, but also for the behavior of their supply chain. So the old moral principle that you cannot outsource your immorality to other parties now became actually a legal principle as well. And it became an offense if you tolerate corruption in your supply chain. But as a result of that, many companies who in some other way fall under this extraterritorial anti-corruption legislation that obviously, as the name indicates, applies the world over, now face the problem that they have to train their suppliers on ethics and anti-corruption. And now, especially in SME suppliers, small and medium enterprise suppliers, they typically don't have an ethics management function or a formal anti-corruption program. So therefore, it takes a lot of time and effort and energy of multinationals to train all their SME suppliers on ethics and anti-corruption. So as a result, a coalition was formed here in South Africa called the Coalition for Ethical Organizations. And they had a few objectives, but one of them was to collaborate around developing one standard program based on international standards for their SME suppliers around building ethical organizations and fighting corruption in their internal processes and procedures. So all these companies who formed part of this coalition pooled resources, made funding available, and they approached us at the Ethics Institute to develop such a program for them. And as a result of that, they now have a program. It's called the Ethically Aware Supplier Induction Program, or we abbreviate it to the EASY program. And they all recognize this program. So if a SME supplier would show up and they want to contract with them, and the person can demonstrate that they have completed this ethically aware supplier induction program, the company don't have to train the SME suppliers again, because the poor SME suppliers were now trained by every company, every multinational company that they want to contract with. And of course, it led to a lot of training fatigue, but also a lot of waste of time, because the same things were duplicated by different companies. And it's quite clear to us that this is not only a problem here in South Africa. So in the meantime, we were able to also roll this out to other English-speaking countries on the African continent. We've translated the program into Portuguese, and it's now being rolled out in Mozambique, for example. And we are also in the process of translating it into French to also make it available to the Francophone countries in Africa. So as a result of this collective action, it had a spin-off of something that started as a common challenge here in South Africa, now also affecting SMEs and giving them an opportunity in other countries on the continent. In closing, I think we learned quite a number of lessons in the process. Sometimes we work with the public sector or with public sector-led collective action, other times with civil society-led collective action. But in most cases, we've worked with private sector-led collective action. And we always find that there are a few things that are very important. The first one is there must be focus and energy. In order to drive any collective action initiative successfully, you need a very specific focus. It shouldn't be broad. It shouldn't be ambiguous. It should be to the point. And if you really hit it on the nail and you find an issue that is of great concern to everyone involved, you would see there's the commitment and there's the energy. And then, of course, collective action initiatives needs coordination. Although there are many players, but these players need to be coordinated. And you don't always want to establish a new body, a new organization to do all the coordination work. And this is where we have found that non-profit organizations or non-governmental organizations can play an important role, because they often are independent and can offer that type of coordination and facilitation service. And that's probably the reason why we as the Ethics Institute have been involved in so many of these initiatives. And one thing that we don't need to forget is you need resources also. Human resources, financial resources. These things aren't free. They do cost money, and we've often found that collective action initiatives might dwindle if there is not sufficient resources put behind these initiatives. But in short and in closing, we believe that, and it's our experience firsthand that these collective action initiatives do make a big difference. It is a very important tool to fight corruption, and for our individual companies, it just amplifies their voice. They get safety in numbers, and therefore it is also a much safer way for them to really tackle big problems head on. Because we all know that there are certain problems, and corruption is one of them, that cannot be solved by one single company. We do need a collective action effort there. Thank you.
Hanımefendiler, beyefendiler, Güney Afrika merkezli olup tüm Afrika...
Ladies and gentlemen, South African-based Ethics Institute and our association is carrying out exchanges of opinion and activities. And TEID Academy, that started its activities in 2016, during the design and foundation stage, we have collaborated with them. And I would like to thank Mr. Deon Rossouw for enlightening us and inspiring us. And finally, we are going to go to the middle of Africa, Nigeria, the Integrity Organization and the Conventional Business Integrity. Mr. Soji, Apampa.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be with you here today to talk about collective action in Nigeria. This became necessary because with all intention in the world, the government of Nigeria was unable to be everywhere at the same time, because the purpose of government regulation was to ensure, number one, standard setting, number two, information gathering around compliance, and number three, behavior modification. So if you don't have the capacity to do all three at the same time, then regulation breaks down. On the other hand, the private sector always favored self-regulation, which also required three things. Number one, that there is an internally motivating force keeping you doing the right thing. And secondly, that there's a strong desire to achieve certain outcomes and avoid others. And finally, that you're able to determine the standards by which your actual or anticipated behavior will be measured. That's on the business side. And we found that if those three things were not in place, it would be difficult to get self-regulation. And some people said, oh, maybe we should have stakeholder activism. But again, without the social capital, without the leverage over business or over government, it was difficult to get that going. So we had to have collective action between stakeholder activism, the private sector, and the government. So we had formed the Convention on Business Integrity in 1997 as a way of creating a level playing field for business in Nigeria. But it was so difficult because it was only the converted that we could get to come together and do the right thing. So eventually, we designed this as a corporate governance rating system, which then got mainstreamed into the Nigeria Stock Exchange, and it became part of the rules. So today, we have the listed companies on the stock exchange having to meet the corporate governance rating standard. And in order to be listed on the premium segment of the market, according to the Securities and Exchange Commission, you have to have a rating, a CGRS rating, which is what we provide in order to connect decisions in the boardroom with the fortunes of the company and force companies to think a bit more ethically than they used to behave. And I'm glad to say that today, at least the companies that represent 90% of market capitalization in Nigeria are all CGRS rated, and they have passed the ethics criteria that is in place. This is one of the corporate governance standards we put in place. It was designed between 2010 and 2014, and we've been running it from 2015 till date. The second initiative that we're involved in Nigeria came about because we said, okay, so companies are now able to focus on their ethical behavior. But what about the ethical behavior of those who are in their supply chain? We've got to do something about that. What about the behavior of the intermediaries, like the lawyers, the accountants, the real estate agents? So we had to start working on professional ethics and ethics amongst professionals in Nigeria. But the area which we thought was most urgent was the interface of those companies with the ports and the government agencies in the ports. And this is where we've been working with the Maritime Anti-Corruption Network in Nigeria in order to ensure that through collective action, we can reduce the levels of corruption in vessel clearance in Nigeria. The project started in 2012, and gradually, one little change after the other, by 2019, we had the highest number of complaints of the demands of for large cash payments. 2020, this had reduced to 128 demands, and last year we only recorded 40. And each time, all of these complaints get resolved, typically during the port operations of that vessel. And as of today, only out of that 40, only 2 are unresolved, which we're still following up on. So we got a lot of success trying to show, in partnership with the government, defining standard operating procedures, having an effective grievance reporting mechanism, ensuring that there is an accountability mechanism through a help desk, which we set up in partnership with the Nigeria Shippers Council, to make sure that the complaints from ship captains get to the places where it could be resolved. And that has given us a lot of traction, a lot of success. And the government also responded by setting up a port standing task team made up of officials who could then police other officials to make sure they were complying with the standard operating procedures. Now, based on the success there, we're trying to ensure that in cargo clearance, we can try to replicate the same thing from the vessel to the warehouse, and now from the warehouse to the consumer, trying to reduce corruption in that process. So we keep looking after the private sector by trying to anticipate where the biggest challenges would be around the desire to give in to corruption. And those are the areas in which we intervene with activities in collective action to reduce corruption. Thank you very much.
Sayın Apampa'ya biz de çok teşekkür ediyoruz. Hanımefendiler,
Thank you, Mr. Apampa. Ladies and gentlemen, and dear audience, as the cases across the world, in our country, last December, December 9 was the World Anti-Corruption Day, and this awareness was indicated with various activities in our country. And in anti-bribery, anti-corruption, particularly in maritime, Mr. Soji has great experience, and in communication and in mutual exchange, TEID it's an important stakeholder of TEID. And we would like to thank them for inspiring us and for their valuable contributions. Dear participants, now I would like to invite you to the TEID Ethical Declaration organized and hosted by our management board, and we will be able to listen to your opinions and recommendations in our roundtable discussions. And during these discussions, please remember to post your signatures as well. And dear viewers, our technical team will be distributing you to the breakout rooms, and as planned, you will have automatic numbers before your names. So in order for you to be appointed to the breakout rooms, please remember that you will be automatically directed. And do not forget to accept the assignment signs. The round table, the breakout meetings will last about 30 minutes, and then we're going to have a family picture, and then we are going to have our closing speech. So if you need any help in technical matters, please call the phone numbers given in the chat box, and also use the email address given to communicate with us. I wish you a pleasant conversation and a breakout session.
Saygıdeğer katılımcılarımız, yayınımıza bir kez daha hoş geldiniz.
Attendees, welcome once again to our webinar. If you have not renewed your integrity pledge, please use the link on the chat and simply put down your symbolic signature. If you encounter a technical problem from the link you receive from the TEID General Secretariat, we would like to remind you that you could also offer your signature right after the webinar as well. Now, distinguished participants, I would like to invite you all to turn on your camera for the TEID family picture. Our technical team will be taking screenshots for a few minutes, and we will be using this in order to reiterate the belief and commitment of our 170 members. We are very pleased and privileged to be here with you. So now, all together, please turn on your camera, and our regie will start taking the photographs and capturing our family photos. Thank you so much. Thank you. Our distinguished attendees who have not turned on their cameras yet, please do not forget to turn on your cameras. We are waiting for you to turn on your cameras. So I could see Altuğ Bey, Umut Bey, Ali Rıza Bey, Melis Hanım, Yasin Bey, Bahar Hanım with her lovely smile. Thank you so much. You are the best. Menteş Bey, how are you doing? Thank you. And let's continue. Fulya Hanım, she's on the phone. So please look at us with a great smile on your face. And now we're going to capture the photo. Nihan Özcan, hi. And Tahsin Bey, İsmail Bey, Burcu Hanım, Fikret Bey. So please quickly turn on your cameras. Bülent Bey with a great smile. Hande Hanım, Alper Bey, I see each and every one of you. All of our distinguished members. Volkan Bey, yeah, he just joined us. Betül Hanım, I could see you as well. Very fast. The technical team has started to capture the visuals for that lovely, great family picture. So please put on a very proud and lovely smile. And Şafak Erdem, Didem Kalaycıoğlu, could you please kindly turn on your cameras? Kaan Ünver. So please do not forget to turn on your cameras. And now let's go back. And now, that moment, our director is going to share the screen. And no, they're still taking pictures. Once everything has been captured, again, they're going to let us know. Distinguished Rashid, director, could you let us know when you're done on the chat? So, proud smile towards your laptop camera or your webcam. Well, this is how we're passing these days. Even though we are digitally and we have come together in the online format, very soon, we believe that very soon we will be physically coming together and we will be able to experience and see and hear our words, our smiles very soon, hopefully. Well, thank you so much. We have captured the screenshots. Distinguished attendees, each and every one of you, we would like to thank you so much for joining us. Well, distinguished stakeholders and members of the Ethics and Reputation Society, esteemed participants, while thanking you for your participation in the TEID member meeting, which made us realize once again how much stronger we have become with your support and sharing, I would like to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you, like thousands times. And I would like to leave the floor to Ms. Aslı Ertekin, Chairwoman of the Board of Directors of the Ethics and Reputation Society. See you very soon. Aslı Hanım, the floor is yours. Thank you so much, Selim Bey. Distinguished participants, esteemed members, organized by Turkish Ethics and Reputation Society, this member meeting has been a great webinar. We would like to thank you very much for joining us and once again renewing your pledge in terms of integrity, in terms of ethics and doing and putting up a fight against corruption. And as I have indicated at the very beginning, we are a huge family. And in order to disseminate the business culture and business ethics and make this an indispensable part of our DNA, we are making our contributions. This is nothing but a great pride for all of us. In our webinar, in our event today, we heard Siemens Collective Action Director Shawn Teixeira, Basel Institute on Governance Compliance Officer and Collective Action Director Gemma Aiolfi, CIPE Senior Program Manager Babak Yektafar, Ethics Institute CEO Deon Rossouw, and Integrity Organization on Convention on Business Integrity Representative Soji Apampa offered their great and very interesting collective action examples from different parts of the world. In terms of the dissemination of the ethics principles and making sure that there is pivotal collaboration among different stakeholders and collective action and the role it plays in the integration of ethics and integrity into the way we do business. And in addition to that, we also were proud to hear that TEID is setting a great example and it is making a contribution to the competitiveness of Turkish enterprises, and the company reputation and identity has been boosted by all the work which has been done in this respect. I would like to take this opportunity to thank every speaker for offering their great keynote speeches. And then we had the roundtable meetings moderated by our members and by our directors, and they were exchanging ideas as to what to do in the future. And then our members renewed their signature into the Integrity Pact. So more than 170 TEID members renewed their pledges in terms of ethical way of doing business, corporate ethical and corporate compliance, not only on paper, but not only simply saying the words, but not only talking the walk, but also walking the walk. Placing these principles into the heart of what they're doing, not risking the reputation for short-term profitability, putting sustainability into focus and caring about the fair leveling field has been the commonalities of the winner companies. And as long as we put up a fight, our reputation will be boosted, and of course we will be supporting the socio-economic development of our country and our world. Well, with these words in mind, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all of our members, board members, our organization committee, and distinguished members of DigIdea, distinguished speakers, and you, of course, distinguished attendees who have joined us here today. Thank you so much. Have a great week. Thank you.
TEİD Etik ve İtibar Derneği, iş etiğinin Türkiye'de faaliyet gösteren tüm şirketlerin yazılı kültürünün temel taşı haline gelmesini sağlama hedefiyle 2010 yılında 11 kurucu üye ile kuruldu. 2022 yılında 170'e varan kurumsal üyeye ulaştık. Her geçen gün üyeleriyle daha da büyüyen, gelişen, sınırları aşan bir dernek olma yolunda emin adımlarla ilerledik. Kurumsal üyelerimiz derneğimize üye olurken TEİD etik beyannamesini imzalayarak TEİD değerlerine bağlılıklarını taahhüt ederler. TEİD etik beyannamesi bu bağlamda Türkiye'nin ve bölgenin en geniş çaplı sektörler arası kolektif eylemi olarak sayılmaktadır. 2016 senesinde kurulan TEİD Akademi ile Kurumsal Etik ve Uyum Yönetimi Sertifika Programı'nı hayata geçirdik. 45 saatlik bu sertifika programının geçmiş 10 döneminde 230'u aşkın mezun verdik. 2018 yılında TEİD tarafından hazırlanan Etik ve Uyum Yöneticisi Meslek Standardı, Mesleki Yeterlilik Kurumu tarafından kabul edilerek resmi gazetede yayımlandı. 50'yi aşkın eğitmen kadromuzla Türkiye'ye 200'e yaklaşan TEİD Akademi mezunu etik ve uyum yöneticisi kazandırdık. etik ve uyum konusunda içerik geliştirme odaklı çeşitli çalışma grupları kurduk. Her sene uluslararası etik zirvesi organize ederek hem yurt içinden hem de yurt dışından katılımcılara ulaştık. Ulusal ve uluslararası konuşmacıları zirvelerimize konuk ettik. Düzenlediğimiz uluslararası zirvelerle 2500 katılımcı ve 10.000 online izleyiciye ulaştık. Pandemi şartlarına rağmen hız kesmeden çalışmalarımıza çevrimiçi platformlar üzerinden webinarlar düzenleyerek devam ettik ve etki alanımızı yurt içi ve yurt dışında daha da arttırdık. Sadece online ve fiziksel etkinlikler düzenlemekle yetinmedik. Yazılı, basılı ve dijital ortamlarda da kaynaklar hazırladık. Türkiye'de ilk ve tek iş etiği ana temalı 3 aylık dergi olan İN Magazin'i 3 ayda bir online ve basılı olarak yayınladık. Kurumsal üye ve paydaşlarımıza ücretsiz olarak dağıttık. Şirketlere etik ve uyum alanında günlük hayatlarında kılavuzluk edecek rehber serileri hazırladık. İş etiği, uyum, sürdürülebilirlik ve şeffaflık konularında Türkiye'ye 6 referans kitap kazandırdık. İş etiği ve uyum konularında araştırmalar ve makaleler yayınladığımız blog sayfamız Etik Blog'da düzenli içerikler paylaşıyoruz. İş dünyasının yanı sıra geleceğimiz olan gençlerle bir araya gelip ortak projeler yürütüyoruz. Mustafa Saffet Anadolu Lisesi, Aydın Doğan Güzel Sanatlar Lisesi, Özel Sezin Okulu, Özel Saint Joseph Fransız Lisesi ile etik kulüpleri kurduk, gençlere yönelik etik zirveler organize ettik. Geleceğin etik liderleri sloganıyla 2014 yılından beri genç neslin etik konusundaki farkındalığını arttırmak amacıyla üniversitelerle, liselerle ve özel okullarla çalışmalar gerçekleştirdik. Aynı zamanda üniversitelerin iş etiği derslerine misafir olarak hem etik ve uyum yöneticisi mesleğinin hem de derneğimizin tanıtımını gerçekleştiriyoruz. Kuruluşundan bugüne her geçen gün büyüyen derneğimize değerli destek ve katkılarınızdan ötürü üyelerimize, iş ortaklarımıza ve tüm paydaşlarımıza teşekkür ederiz. Etik ve İtibar Derneği 12 yıldır değerli desteklerinizle etki yaratarak büyümeye devam ediyor.